There are thousands of stories about the Bermuda Triangle all over the world, but there's one number that almost nobody talks about: 60,000. Right now, around 60,000 people sleep, cook, go to work, grow old, and live their everyday lives inside this triangle. The very water that gives you chills when you watch videos of it is right outside their homes. And the strangest part? Many of these people are descendants of passengers from the very ships that disappeared here, ships that crashed into the reefs surrounding Bermuda. Instead of leaving, some of the survivors decided to stay. The whole world knows the Bermuda Triangle as a graveyard, but right in the middle of that so-called graveyard stands an entire island community. And that raises the real question: how have people managed to survive in the very place the world considers cursed? And after surviving here, why did they choose to stay? To find the answer, first you need to understand just how isolated this place really is. Bermuda isn't an island sitting next to some mainland country. It stands almost completely alone in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The closest landmass to the west is the coast of the United States, roughly 1,050 kilometers away. And if you travel east by boat, you have to cross nearly 4,800 kilometers of open ocean before reaching the first land, Africa. There is almost nothing in between, just water, wind, and waves stretching all the way to the horizon. And in the middle of all this emptiness, Bermuda itself covers only a little more than 50 square kilometers. That's roughly the size of a single piece if you divided a typical city into 6 parts. But what lies beneath this tiny piece of land is even stranger. Bermuda isn't simply an island that appeared in the middle of the ocean. It is the summit of a massive underwater volcano whose base lies about 4,300 meters below the surface of the Atlantic. After the volcano went extinct, layer after layer of coral, shells, and ocean sediment accumulated on top of it over countless ages. Eventually, it formed a limestone layer nearly 60 meters thick. In other words, the ground where people in Bermuda build their homes today is essentially made from the accumulated remains of billions of marine creatures. But around this ancient volcanic mountain lies something that isn't a mystery at all. And yet, for hundreds of years, it has been responsible for countless shipwrecks. Bermuda is surrounded by a strange wall of coral reefs. Locals have long referred to these formations as ship-breaking reefs because they rise almost to the surface of the water, and they can tear a ship apart with frightening ease. Ordinary coral reefs usually remain well below the surface. But here, some of the reef formations rise almost level with the waterline. Layers of algae and marine growth have helped keep them right there, and these reefs are extremely hard. When an old wooden ship struck one of them, the vessel often didn't stand a chance. Today, the skeletons of more than 300 ships are believed to rest on the seabed around Bermuda. But this is where the story takes a surprising turn. Those deadly reefs may have actually given Bermuda its first permanent people. The year was 1609. A terrifying storm pushed the English Sea Venture towards Bermuda, where it eventually ran aground on the surrounding coral reefs. The ship was destroyed, but the people survived, and that single event changed the entire future of the island. Stand on one of Bermuda's hills today, and the first thing you'll notice isn't some towering skyscraper. It's thousands of bright white rooftops sparkling under the sunlight. From a distance, they look like they were designed purely for beauty, but those roofs are actually the bloodline of the island. Every roof is carefully stepped and shaped. Each section contains channels designed to collect rainwater. When rain falls, the water flows down the stepped surface, moves through the channels, and eventually collects inside a huge tank hidden beneath the house. Bermuda has laws requiring homes to include water storage systems designed according to the size of their roofs. Because on this island, every drop of rain that falls from the sky is a valuable resource. And the white color of the roofs isn't simply for decoration either. The limestone-based white surface reflects sunlight, helps keep the collected water cleaner, keeps the houses cooler, and the heavy roof structure helps protect the homes during hurricanes. One roof does 4 different jobs. And this isn't some modern technology developed in a laboratory. It's the result of generations of people quietly observing their environment and learning how to survive with it. The early inhabitants understood something important. They couldn't change the island, but they could learn how to live with it. People living in coastal communities around the world can understand this struggle immediately. You can be surrounded by water, yet the moment you pump groundwater from the ground, what comes out can be salty. The difference is that Bermuda turned its solution into law. But water is only part of the story. The rules for surviving on a tiny island don't end there. Since 1951, Bermuda has had strict rules limiting private automobiles. For decades, the island maintained a famously restrictive approach to car ownership, and visitors have not simply been able to rent a normal private car whenever they want. Think about that for a moment. At a time when major cities around the world were becoming increasingly crowded with automobiles, this tiny island chose a completely different path. As a result, on Bermuda's narrow roads, one of the most familiar sounds isn't the roar of engines, it's the soft hum of scooters moving between the trees, along with the distant sound of ferries. And because there is almost no way to expand the island's land, and there is little room for large-scale industry or farming, almost everything you see on store shelves has to arrive by sea. From rice to medicine, from nails to school notebooks, almost everything. People living on islands around the world know this reality all too well. When a storm shuts down ferry service for a couple of days, you can immediately see how quickly the local markets begin to change. For people in Bermuda, that calculation has to be made throughout the year. And yet, they stayed. After a day of work, they return to that same ocean. Some go fishing, some take their boats out. Others simply sit quietly and stare towards the horizon. To them, this water isn't a wall separating them from the world. It is the address of some of their most important memories. And yet, it was in these very waters that strange things happened for centuries, events that still haven't been completely explained. One of the earliest famous witnesses to something unusual in this part of the Atlantic was Christopher Columbus himself. During his voyage, the compass needle reportedly behaved strangely, appearing to move unpredictably instead of pointing steadily north. Even today, old-style magnetic compasses can sometimes behave strangely in this region. 2 compasses placed close together can even appear to point in different directions under certain conditions. Scientists have suggested several possible explanations, including variations in Earth's magnetic field and magnetic minerals associated with the volcanic geology beneath the region. Now imagine a time when GPS didn't exist. For sailors, that tiny compass needle was one of their most important tools for navigation. If that needle suddenly appeared to be telling you the wrong direction, how would you know where land was? But not every shipwreck story around Bermuda ended in tragedy. Many of the people living in Bermuda today may trace their ancestry back to settlers and survivors that arrived during the island's early history. The ocean tried to take their lives. Instead, some of those people made the decision to stay. They turned the very rocks that had destroyed ships into their home. 400 years later, that single decision still stands before us today as thousands of white rooftops scattered across an extraordinary island civilization in the middle of the ocean. So perhaps the greatest mystery of the Bermuda Triangle isn't the ships that disappeared. Maybe the real mystery is this: how did a group of people look at the very waters the world called cursed and decide that these rocks were home? Maybe the value of a place isn't measured by its size or by how much wealth it contains. Maybe it's measured by how deeply people are willing to hold on to it.